G'day, it's Dan here, and today I'm going to give you a really quick video on how to make a basic start at a rule set. Now, this is in response to some questions that are being asked on the forums at the moment, and I started to make up a quick dummy rule set to answer those questions. And I thought I may as well share it with a wider audience and just show you how that plays out. From the rule set wizard side to the character sheet side. I've left a bunch of debug in there, and we'll go and have a look at what happens here. So you can see it's a really basic couple of entries in here. Let's have a look at the character sheet. Okay, we've got a brand new rule set loaded. We can see that we've got just 4 labels and 5 values on here. We've got strength, a score, fighting skill, a score, attack, a score, and it's a rollable field. We've got an encumbrance with 2 different fields. I've just color coded these just to help me see what's going on here. So strength, our character has a strength of 25, and we can see that the attack score adjusted automatically when I type that in. We'll have a look at the code in that shortly. And we've got a fighting skill of 15, and our attack skill also updated again. So it's now actually the sum of both those fields. And our encumbrance, if we've got an encumbrance of 10, stays at 0. If you have an encumbrance of 20, still stays at 0. If we have an encumbrance of 25, that increases to 1 encumbrance value. So we've got for 30, it's 2. So there's a math formula behind that, and I'm sure it'll make sense when you see it. So the formula is actually encumbrance minus 20 divided by 5. So that's how that value works. And if we roll our attack skill here, we're going to see a whole bunch of debug chat. I've left all of that in there deliberately because we're going to go through that, what it all means. And we've also got Joaquin, attack, critical miss, result 95. We can see that values played out here. So let's go and have a look at how that code is created. So I've created a brand new project inside the rule set wizard, and I start with a folder called campaign, which is mimicking the core RPG folder layout, and in there I've got a file or a window, and it's called car sheet main. Car sheet main is a window that core RPG uses, and it's the data that's displayed on the first tab of a character sheet. So we've just co-opted that, and it's to minimize the amount of extra coding. So let's have a look at that. So we've got our window, which we've called car sheet main, so that's over here, car sheet main, and we've sized it, and that's really all we've done for this one. I've then put in a frame, which is just an icon control. So you can see it's an icon control, and I've set it to the frame field light, which is a core RPG frame. You can see that that's the frame displayed here. It's this light yellowy parchment colored frame, and that's I've put that there using an icon control, and the icon control is set to the value of field light, which is a frame. Next, I've got 4 labels. So we've got label, strength label, we've got another one called fighting skill, attack, and encumbrance. And we can see that there's 2 parts to this really that we've used. So we'll use encumbrance label. So encumbrance label over here, that's the name field here. So whenever I've got a string or a number field that's going to have editable data in there and it has a label, I basically give the label the same name as the field. So in this case it's encumbrance underscore label or strength underscore label. And we can see here that the text is encumbrance. If we have a look at the other ones, we've got strength is the text, and we've got strength underscore label. There are other values here. We're not really worried about those at the moment. The next thing we've got is 5 number fields, and this is, you can see here that this number field is named strength, and I've changed the font. I've used reference B, which is basically just a bold version of the font, and I've colored it blue. Field dark is just the default frame for a number field, and you can change that as you'll see in any of my other videos. So what we've got here is a field called strength, and I've put some code in here. So function on value changed. Now you can see here in this drop down, you can see all the different functions that are built into the rule set or the engine. It recognizes these functions on a number field. So you can choose one of these and you can click this field to add in just the function beginning and end. So what I've got here is local node car, which is window.getDatabase node, and that pulls the character sheet ID out of the database. So if this was the 7th character sheet that would be created, it would be something like carsheet.id-00007. And that node car allows us to pull values out of the database, and they will always correspond to this character sheet or this character. So strength, we've got a new variable called nStrength, and it's going to pull it from our character sheet, and it's going to choose get from a child of the character sheet called strength, and it's going to get the value of that, and it's going to store that as strength. We're going to do the same for fight. We're going to create a new variable called nFight, and we're going to get the child node fight and its value and assign it to nFight, and then we're going to get the child attack. This is the attack, the field called attack. So we're getting this field and we're setting its value to strength plus fight, which is the value of this plus the value of that. So it'll set up these variables, and then we're going to assign a value to attack. Now this formula is identical to the formula that we need to apply our fighting skill. So I've simply copied and pasted it into this field. It's identical. So again, we're declaring or getting the value of the character sheet, the value of the strength score, the value of the fight score, and then we're setting the sum of those into the field called attack. Attack, we'll come back and look at that one in a moment. And then we've got encumbrance. So this is, again, so when the value of encumbrance changes, we do some math. So again, we identify the character sheet. The penalty is a new variable, we're going to default it to 0. A new variable called encumbrance, which is going to be the value of this field. So I'm using get value. So we're storing that in there. Now if the value of that encumbrance field is less than 20, if it's greater than 19, so 20 or greater, then it's going to do this formula. And the reason it's doing that is I don't want to have bonuses if the character is carrying nothing. Simply this is going to create a penalty if the character is carrying too much gear. So the magic number is 20. If they're carrying more than 20, which because I've used math.floor, it's actually going to not really kick in until they're 5 points over the encumbrance limit of 20. So at 5 points over, that end penalty number will become equal to 1. At 30 points it's equal to 2. At 35 it's equal to 3, and so on. And then we're going to set the value of this field here using the value that we've generated in here with this math string. What we'll also see is that the encumbrance field, we've set it to read only, so it can't be edited, and the attack score is also set to read only. Let's have a quick peek. We can see that I can't edit. I'm doing control scroll here and I'm typing numbers in, and it's not actually going into the attack score. It's because that field is set to read only. So and the same with the encumbrance score. I can't change its value in any shape, in any way, other than by editing the encumbrance value. The penalty will only change when this value changes. So if I change my strength, score to 30, we can see that the attack value is updated automatically. Now, where this is really getting to is how we set up the roll. So I'm going to click on our attack field. To make it rollable, all I do is type in a dice roll string down here. So this is a D100 game, percentile game, so I'm putting in 1D100, and means when I double click this field, it's going to, or when I click this field, it's going to roll 1D100. But I want to do more with it than that. I don't just want to throw a D100, I want to do some math and make it easier on the player and the GM, so it works out what's going to happen. So what I'm going to do is I've put a description field in here. So attack, this gets sent with the dice string. It also will send the description. And I'm going to use this result handler, which we'll look at in a moment, to manipulate the results of the dice. But I want to send some extra information along. What I want to send over is I want to send the value of the attack skill, and I want to send over the value of the encumbrance penalty. So we go to collection, and I've created two fields. One of them I've named attack score, no spaces, and I've used these curly braces. So this represents, with these curly braces in here, attack means this value here, labeled attack. The other one, where we've got encumbrance penalty, you can see I've used the curly braces again. That means it's referencing this field over here, which is named encumbrance underscore penalty. So I'm actually sending the values from this window along with the role. So one's called encumbrance penalty and the other one's called attack score. We'll see those in action when we roll some dice. Let's do that now. So we're going to double click our attack roll here, and we've got a bunch of debug information that's come out here, and we've also our roll value. We rolled a 10, and that has been displayed here, and we've got all this debug information. So let's go and have a look at how that was all generated. What I've done is create a folder called scripts, and under scripts I've created a file called manager roles. This file is actually a script file, so let's look at this script. So in here I've created a function called attack, and when you create a role using the Ruleset wizard, it automatically sends 3 sets of data along with it: rSource, rTarget, and rRole. And we're going to go and have a look at what each of those does when they arrive at the string. And the way we're going to do that is I'm using these debug commands to write this information to the chat command. So rSource, rTarget, and rRole are being sent with the role to this function. They're being sent to this particular function because we've used this result handler function name, manager roles, which is the name of the file, and then the full stop, and then attack, and attack is the function name. So we have a look over here, our function name is attack, and it's going to receive 3 pieces of information from the Ruleset wizard: rSource, rTarget, and rRole. So let's go and see what they look like. So this is the role we just did, and we can see that rSource sends over type. So the source type is character sheet. The source creature node, that's our ID, our reference, it's carsheet.id-00001. So that's a unique identifier that specifies this character sheet. And then the source name is Joaquin, which is my character's name up here. Then we set over another piece of information called rTarget, and we haven't got any targeting information being used in this role at this time. Nothing's been coded in there, and we didn't have any targets selected, so it's reported nil. But the role has sent a bunch of stuff over. So end bonuses, if our dice string was 1d100 plus 5, then end bonuses would equal 5. But there are no bonuses, it's just a dice string, so that's 0. A dice is an array. So this is an array. If we were to throw 3d100, we would actually have number 1 and number 2 and number 3 in here. So, but we're only sending 1. Now this is a bit tricky because the percentile dice is actually 2 dice, but it's actually just recording it for these purposes as a single result. So we're throwing a 100-sided dice and getting 1 value. So the values in this array for the dice is value is equal to 10, which is what we rolled. The type is a D100, and the result, which is the same as the value, is 10. Our expression, which is our dice string, was 1D100. There were no modifiers. That's from down here in the modifier stack. It was not a secret roll. It wasn't in the tower. And the type was attack roll action. then that's generated automatically by the Ruleset wizard unless you put one in here. Generally, for the most part, we're not going to need that at this time. Now, attack score is one of these additional data fields that we sent, and it's sending over our attack score 45. So we can see attack score equals 45. You might notice it's a string and not a number, and it's just a quirk. It always sends data as it always sends data outside of one of these arrays as a string. So we can see in here result and value come over as numbers. Everything else will come over as a string. And then our last one there was encumbrance penalty, and that's this value here, 1. And our description, we put that in, the Ruleset wizard was attack. So we can see that all of the information was passed over automatically. We didn't have to do a whole lot to do that. We did add in attack score and encumbrance penalty. Everything else the Ruleset wizard has generated for us and passed it to the role. Now, our attack score is 44. Now, we've got 45 here, so I think you can guess what the difference is here. It's 45 minus our encumbrance penalty. So let's look at how we got to that result. What we've done here is our local n attack score equals toNumber. Remember, all the data being sent over in the R role is arriving as a string, so we need to convert it to a number. And so this is just a Lua function toNumber. R role dot attack score. So that 45 as a string will now become 45 as a number, minus our encumbrance penalty, which is the same. Convert it to a number, rroll.encumbrance penalty. So we've got 45 minus 1 is our attack score, and then I've sent that to the chat window with our debug chat, attack score and attack score. Then we've declared a result hit and the result of our dice roll. So let's look at how we generated that in the debug. I've created 2 new variables here. So local n result equals rroll to a dice 1, which means if we were to throw 5 dice, the first one that lands is our dice 1. So rroll.a dice square brackets 1 is the first dice. If we were throwing multiple dice, we could also reference 2, 3, 4, 5, however many dice that we had. And if we're going to reference multiple dice, we want to do that programmatically so that we don't have to, so that our formulas don't error out when if the number of dice didn't match what we coded in there. So, but we've got n result is equal to this, and we're also declaring a string variable and with no value at this point. Now we're going to check n result, which is the value that the dice landed, that our dice rolled. So if our dice result is greater than our attack score, then basically we've got a miss. So our debug chat is miss. Now we're going to do something else as well. The person who asked this question was talking about Hardmaster, which criticals happen when the dice result ends in a 5 or a 0. So if you roll a 15 or a 20 or a 55 or a 60, you get a different result than if you rolled a 16, 17, 18, 19, or a 21, 22, 23, 24. So we're again just using some Lua math commands, and this one's called modulo. And basically that's if you divide the first value by the second value, what is left over. So when we divide 50 by 5, that's a clean result. It's 50 divided by 5 is 10. There's nothing left over. So our leftover would be 0. If we divided 51 by 5, we'd get 10 and 1 left over. So this would be untrue. So what we've got here is if our result modulo 5 is equal to 0 and our result is higher than our attack score, we have a critical miss. If our result is higher than our attack score and it's not cleanly divisible by 5, we simply get a miss. And then the same thing happens down here. This else command means anything that's not true here. So basically if our result was less than or equal to our attack score, then our default premise is hit. And again, if the result is divisible cleanly by 5, then it's a critical hit. Otherwise, it's a standard hit. And then I'm outputting another debug, which is just the result, which is our string that we've generated over here, which is a combination of the plain text result and the number that rolled on the dice. And we've output that to chat. As you can see here, we got a hit with our roll of 10. Let's roll one more. And we rolled 14. So 14 is a hit, but it's not a critical hit. So the result is a hit with a 14, whereas up here we had a result which was a critical hit with a 10, because the 10 is cleanly divisible by 5. And so that's all debug information that we've got up here. Our actual information that we're going to write to chat is down here. So we've got the icon, and it's an NPC, or it's being controlled by the GMs. It's got the GM's icon. The actor's name, which is Joaquin. It was an attack roll. The result was a hit, and the actual dice displayed was 14. Up here we've got Joaquin did an attack. It was a critical hit with a dice result of 10, and this is our pretty dice result that was displayed there. So we'll quickly check that code, and we're just about done. So to do this, we first have to use, there's a couple of different functions in Core RPG that help us create messages, and we're going to use the actions manager.createActionMessage, and it wants two inputs. It wants rSource, and that's where it gets the name and the icon from, and then rRoll, which is where it gets the results of the dice from. Now, everything else we have to build. So it knows that Joaquin rolled dice, and it also knows what his portrait looks like, and then it knows what the dice landed. So it knows that we rolled a 10 or we rolled a 14. But it doesn't know by itself anything else, and it won't report anything else. So we're going to add that in. So our message is actually an array of values, and one of those values is text. So we're going to keep the current value. So we're going to take our message.text, and we're going to append our result. And you might notice that all my result files start with a space, and that's to allow this formatting to flow cleanly. So we get our message text, which is actually going to be the actor's name, Joaquin, the type of roll, which was attack, and then the result. And then we're just going to deliver the chat message. And we deliver chat message, and it's going to deliver the array called rMessage. And then we're going to return true, and that's it. So let's quickly just throw a couple more dice and see what results we get. We'll throw another set of dice here. So 97, big number. Some games the top 5% would be a critical fail, but in this game, for it to be a critical, it needs to end in a 5 or a 0. So this is simply an attack miss. Do another one. 19, so it's under our attack score, so it's going to be a hit, but because it's in 19, it's not a critical. Now we could change these values up a bit higher, make that 65. We're going to get a lot more hits that way. Of course, not with a roll of 89. 72, let's get another one that ends, there we go. We've rolled 10 and 0, so our value of 10 is divisible cleanly by 5, so we've got ourselves a critical hit. That's it. So I'm going to post this on the FG forums and in the Ruleset Wizard thread, and hopefully it might have explained some questions you might have, or might just show you how easy it is to actually start building these things together and putting just a little bit of automation into a character sheet. And it really was quite simple once you understand some of the basic concepts that are going on under the hood. Thank you very much for watching, and I really hope that this encourages you to dive in and try some of these things yourselves. Have fun.